Hello, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, or if you happen to be joining us from. This is Jim McKeith, and thanks for joining us for this modernizing applications for Windows 10 webinar series.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Jim. I hope you can hear me good. Yes, today I will hold the webinar Building Native Apps for Windows and Why It Matters. Let's move on. For quality purposes, all lines are muted, and sorry if except for presenters, but if you will have any questions, you can use chat panel or questions panel, and also we will have a Q&A section in the end of our webinar, and we can discuss everything later. It's a couple of things about myself. You know, thank you, Jim. I'm Embarcadero MVP. I'm working with Delphi from 1998. I started from Delphi 3. Now I can say that I am a Delphi evangelist. I'm trying to popularize Delphi and Delphi services because it's not only Delphi. I'm talking about entire Embarcadero ecosystem. And like something personal about myself, I have 2 kids, 4 and 5 years old. It's not easy, and I love travel, and I'm a fisher. No water, only facts and arguments, and I will try to make the webinar not boring and no boredom. I will try to make serious things as funny as possible, and I hope nobody will sleep during our session. And Lemmer Boris and his friends will help me with this, and they will try to make the webinar not boring for all of us. Agenda, what we will discuss today. In the beginning, I will provide couple of explanations about native desktop development for Windows. I know everybody know how it works and what we have to use and why it matters. But I will provide a couple of maybe interesting things. Then we will discuss JavaScript framework-based solutions, and we will compare them with Delphi and C++ Builder for Windows desktop development. Later, we will check how this Electron and Node.js solution and frameworks are working, and in the end, like an additional information, we will compare Delphi development with WinForms and WPF, like solutions from Microsoft, and of course, I will tell a couple of words about FMX framework, also for the Windows desktop development, and why it matters. I think that all the time techies are innovating something new. I think that each year you can hear couple of new revolutionary technologies which have to change the world. You think, what I have to do? What should I drop my favorite tool and start to learn something new? And of course, you can hear that more such things about web applications development, use web technologies and instead for desktop development instead of proven technologies, and that's really great. I like this, and because movement is life, and we have to check something new. But the end should justify the means. Bike to fulfill its main goal, to write well, and development tools to create an effective and productive applications. But you know that in real life, it doesn't work this way. Usually, I can say also from my point of view, my side, because I also can be under the effect from under the trends, and I am thinking what I have to do, and when I'm hearing different, and I can see new different technologies from Google, Apple, Microsoft, of course, and we are on the marketing influence, trends, and news. This is why we're trying to change something new, to try something new, to change something. And this is why we want to explain, and I want to explain today, and why it's so important to make a right choice. The right choice for development desktop applications, especially native Windows application, and why it matters. And I can say that 100%, as I said, each year you can hear that now from Microsoft, from other solution providers and the development tools providers, that now we have new, stable, future, great development tool, and let's start to use it. This is what I can hear around me, that we are planning to use JavaScript frameworks like Electron for Windows development because of rapid productivity, low barrier of entry, and get it up and running quickly. Yes, I have to add that a lot of these technologies, which and the relationary technologies which we have each new year right now, connected to the web, and especially for JavaScript and the different frameworks, of course. And I think that the reason is because these guys just know JavaScript, and they believe that JavaScript is the only way to make the app for different platforms, because we have JavaScript for desktop, for web, for mobile, of course, and right now the trend that somebody try to develop everything using JavaScript, but you know that we cannot have something universal 100%, and unfortunately some JavaScript frameworks for desktop often bring massive overheat and lack some features necessary for desktop applications. Or maybe if we are hearing such things, we live in such things, maybe we just turn a blind eye to the obvious things. It's again why we have to reinvent bicycle from the scratch again. If we already have proven technologies, right now I'm talking about desktop development, and this especially about Windows desktop development. And I think, of course, it's a joke, but maybe because of all these new young people trying to be trendy, drink smoothies, and ride the electric scooter. I don't know. But now let's try to be more serious, and now let's try to talk and discuss exactly about technical side of the question. And this is like my disclaimer, spoiler, or my own position. I want try to make JavaScript for desktop better looking, and RAD Studio only good looking. And I will try to give only the facts honestly, and not one-sidedly. But I have to add that from my side, I want to also protect RAD Studio from Node.js and one-sided influencers and provide other facts, because I can hear a lot of noise from this information and noise from JavaScript influencers, and I have to provide my point of view and our side and our position, and provide our arguments. Here is a list of most popular JavaScript frameworks from the based on the JavaScript for desktop, and you know that I can feel that each year we try and we are getting new frameworks. They're growing like mushrooms after the rain. Most popular for today, I think you can also Google it, and it's Electron, and WJS, AppsJS, Meteor, and Proton Native, and all these JavaScript frameworks based on Node.js, and that's very important and interesting question. And let's take the Electron like an example and how it works, and we will look how it works. And why Electron? Because nowadays it's a really most popular and up-to-date framework. And I think if you will ask somebody and will try to Google such technology, the first thing which you will hear, it's Electron. It's most popular for today. But first, I propose to clarify what is this Node.js and how it works and why all these frameworks are based on Node.js. Why it's so popular, and maybe all these frameworks just came to us after this Node.js was developed and introduced. Here is a very easy picture, a very easy schema, which have to show us what's the difference between JavaScript and Node.js and where is it. You know that JavaScript, and it works in Java runtime environment. We have Java virtual machine and library classes, and usually it works in browser. But Node.js, it's a little bit different engine. It's on its own V8 engine solution for execution. It's this engine which written in C++, and it converts JavaScript code to low-level machine code and execution, and it's faster than classic JavaScript idea with the interpretation, and it does not need web browser for execution inside the browser. It's different process which uses Google Chromium libraries for a representation layer. And now let's compare RAD Studio with Electron for desktop development. All the time I will provide any examples related to the more related to the Delphi and Object Pascal, and of course Electron and JavaScript. But before we start, let's check what do we have under the hood. This also, it's not very complicated schema. What do we have for the Electron? We have JavaScript programming language, and we have this Node.js execution environment. V8 engine, all their modules and API. This is Node.js, which you are installing on your local machine. The next layer, it's a Chromium rendering library, and then when you're developing Electron is Node.js modules packaging, because Electron just again it's like a module for the Node.js. The next layer, when you're developing your applications, the packaging and distribution your application, JavaScript application, and distribution with the host application. For Windows, this is Electron exe. You can rename this file, and after you go through all these layers, you can start this Electron host application, which will run your environment and run your machine JavaScript code, which was transferred to the machine low-level code, and it will be executed on the low-level machine code execution. Sorry. If we check on the right side, here is our Object Pascal or C++ for Delphi or C++ builder, and when we are developing our application, we just compile it into Win32 or Win64 binary, and it's already ready for execution for the on the machine on the low-level machine, like low-level machine code. You can see how many layers do we have on the left side and on the right side, and this is why when we are talking about all these additional resources which we have to use and we have to sync, and we have to be responsible for them, because if when we are distributing any Electron or JavaScript-based framework application, we have to sync, and we will be responsible for the quality of Chromium rendering library, how Node.js is working, because we won't explain our customers why our application works this way and have the bugs in the Chromium rendering library. It's our also issues and problems. Now let's discuss about pros and cons for the both technologies. Of course, I'm a good guy, and I will start from pros. If you know only JavaScript and you need desktop development, yes, Electron is compromise for you. This is the first, I guess, it's the first argument from the JavaScript developers. Electron with Node.js is faster than classic JavaScript, of course. If I cannot say for somebody that the execution is very slow, it's not a Java virtual machine. Of course, you will have single code base for client apps and server-side applications with some limitations, like when you can use the same JavaScript classes for your client application and your web application, which, for example, provide some back office for your application. Of course, single code base for Windows, macOS, and Linux. And yeah, maybe Electron is easy to start and use, but that's only if you have web developers and you think that their knowledge will enough for building desktop application. If you think that web developers can develop desktop application almost without any experience, just know if you say Node.js, maybe. And interesting that Node.js that Electron has a built-in update manager. Now about the cons. Performance matters, of course. Application will need more calculation resources. From my experience and from what I can hear from my developers, especially memory. And you know that our current world, instead of developing sometimes effective applications, we are just not thinking about such things, because we think that our computers become faster and faster, and cost of development time is much more higher than our computing resources time. This is why I think that I don't know, maybe for the last 10 years, calculation resources of our computers were increased on 10 or maybe 50 or 100 times, but finally we have the same applications. It's not like something different. And finally, Electron, sorry. With Electron, we don't have native application for Windows. No, we don't have native UI. And we have V8 bytecode for execution inside V8 engine. And maybe it's only my scaries, but what we will have in the future? Maybe this revolutionary technology again will be stopped and support will be stopped. I don't know. Also, what I already mentioned, you will depend on Chromium and its updates and compatibility V8 engine with Chromium, and that's not easy question. GitHub GitHub community should keep this up to date. Not all enterprise developers are ready to use open source solutions. Also, you have to think about source code protection issue. And that's what I can hear again from different developers. And it's not only my opinion. You can Google Stack Overflow, most popular questions about Electron, and check about all these cons which people are talking about. And one of the interesting things that when you're distributing your application, you will package your package will have all the time a lot of extra resources. I haven't heard that your desktop application can have a lot of modules which belongs to mobile application, and that's the real time, and that's real life, and your app will eat your computing resources. Now let's return to RAD Studio. Oh yes, we have the best performance for VCL and FMX because of low-level execution without any packages, because in the end we have binary which is ready for using like machine code. That's really machine code which can be executed immediately. It's really proven tool for Windows desktop development, and we don't have any dependencies and layers like Chromium for UI or Node.js for execution. We have everything what we need. We have small executable size and low memory uses, and of course we will have native applications for Windows. Of course, I have to say a couple of cons. If somebody knows only JavaScript, of course he has to study and learn from the scratch appropriate language. Maybe it will be Delphi, Object Pascal, or C++. Or if we're talking about other technologies, it can be different language. I don't know, is it really disadvantage or no? I don't think so. VCL is based on 32 and 64 compilers, and what I can hear from somebody else, what will be in 5 years from now with Windows? Maybe in future will be something different, but I can say that Windows 10, you know, that all these technologies, I can say that they still, and I can feel their confidence that we will be able to use and develop low Win32 and Win64 applications long time, and this support will never stop. I don't know, do we have more disadvantages? But opinions may be right, but I don't think that there are more disadvantages. They're more in marketing trends, popularity, and so on. This is all. Maybe you can hear something negative because of some marketing materials from other technologies, but I think that we know how to filter all this negative or informational noise. And wow, interesting. But if you so like, and maybe if you want to try Electron, and you like Delphi, I can tell you a little secret, but maybe you already know it. You can develop Electron applications using your favorite tool. You know, I mean, you can develop Electron applications using Delphi. And this is this solution called TMS Web Core. Maybe you already know or tried, or maybe you even participated in any conference or meetings using TMS software company. Maybe you know. And the interesting fact, when I prepared the webinar, I tried to find any benchmarks for JavaScript and compare independent benchmarks and compare and compare, for example, this Electron or other JavaScript framework-based solutions and native desktop applications. And unfortunately, that's really strange, but I couldn't find them, and that's really food for the thinking. I even didn't find any official benchmarks from the Electron community. And I just found you can Google something like Electron benchmark, and it will be very interesting results on the first page. And all that I found just some benchmarks from independent developers and independent I don't know how to techies who just tried and compare the native applications and Electron based. Here is just a couple of links which you also can find in the internet. But maybe Electron is not here to compete with anyone. It's just you just want to love it and don't think about anything else. And guys, I had no other choice. I have created my own example, 3 applications with the same functionality, because I wanted to compare compare all the 3, even not 2 technologies, but with 3 different frameworks and tools, combinations of 3 different frameworks and tools. The first one is Delphi. Delphi VCL application with Object Pascal. The second one, it's a recommended environment for development native Electron application. I'm not talking about native applications from Windows, but I'm talking about native tools for developing Electron applications. And the third example is again the JavaScript, or sorry, it's a Delphi with TMS Web Core. All 3 applications have similar and very easy functionality. They are for Windows, of course. For Windows, it has only one main form, and I implemented local storage interactions because for Electron, this main difference with regular JavaScript and Chrome-based applications. Also, what application will do? I just will each 250 milliseconds load from the local storage image, a different image, and show it to the image component. Also, I will have some page control component with 3 tabs, which we are switching also each 250 milliseconds. The goal was to compare UI, because if we're talking about, for example, any calculations, I don't think that it will has two so big differences. I think the main things about the UI, especially if we're talking about cross-platform. And like a disclaimer, I do not pretend on verity. I really could do something incorrectly. I'm not a deep Electron developer, but I'm like the guy who is under the trends which try to use Electron, for example, for desktop, and that's just an example for you and how it works. Here you can see slides, how this application will look like, and they look like. And let's watch a separate video on how it works and look like with my comments. Guys, it's only 7 minutes. Hello again. I'll show you what I have prepared. I have 3 applications. The first one is a Delphi VCL application. I'm using 10.3 version. It's very easy. You can see The code is very easy. Again, this is a native Windows application. The second example, it's this native Electron application. I'm using Atom source code editor. I want to deeply explain how this Electron application works, because it's totally different subject for the webinar, I guess. But anyway, we have three main places for Electron application. The first one is like representation. This is our HTML file. Also for HTML file, I have an image, and I have implementation of page control, the same, for example, like Delphi, but here is I have to use something like div tags, and I have a progress bar class. Also, this example, this demo project also will implement the same logic. I will each 250 milliseconds load using Electron and this Chrome library. I will interact with local drive, and this is the difference. For example, for a regular Chromium, you cannot work with hard drive, but using Electron, you can. And each 250 milliseconds, I will upload and change the image for the image tag control and switch between page control tabs. Here, yes, this is the second main file for the Electron application. That's a main process. By the way, it's important in addition that each Electron application have two different threads. The first one is main thread, and the second one is the rendering thread. And inside main thread, you cannot work with UI. UI, it's like web browser and Chrome representation, and vice versa. From representation thread, you cannot access methods from the main thread, of course, except of internal process interactions. They have of course such methods. But I'm talking about JavaScript, so something like inside main process, I can perform and access to the DOM model. And here is the main functionality which I implemented. Like I just set it up on timer, and each 250 milliseconds, I will change the file for the image tag. I will upload it and check. And I will switch between tabs. Okay, and the third application is a web core TMS web core project application. If you guys are not familiar with such kind of projects, you have to, of course, you should have a TMS web core product, and you can go to the new items dialog box, and you will have different type of Electron application, because TMS web core will add a wrapper for your JavaScript, which will be adopted for exactly for Electron. And how it works, you are developing application exactly using Delphi IDE. You are using TMS web core controls. You can write that we have editor, Delphi editor. We have Delphi components. I can write object Pascal source. Finally, I will have Electron cross-platform application. Now it's interesting. Okay, let's start with our debugging. Oh yeah, and finally I have Electron application. You can see. Again, functionality is the same, and here we have our native VCL application and TMS web core Electron application. Anyway, I think it's miracle that using Delphi code and Delphi in RAD Studio, we have again Electron application, and I did not write a line of JavaScript code. Let's check what do we have inside Task Manager. Our VCL application is using the same resources. For Electron, again, we have three processes. CPU is the same, but memory again is increasing. I don't know why. In this case, what I can say that TMS Web Core and native Electron tools are almost the same. I mean that you can use Delphi provided Electron applications. As for resources and as for the memory, you can see that also the memory is increasing. I don't know why. And that's the result and food for thinking and explanation for you guys how it works. I'm not I cannot be sure that I created for example, ideal applications. I'm like a newbie, just checked 3 technologies with easiest application without any tweaks, like from the box. And that's you can see the results. 3 applications, 3 different type of resources, and here you can see memory is continuing to increase. I don't know. That's the result. Maybe it was helpful for you. I hope so. Okay, let's continue with the webinar. The reason is that this video was that I just created 3 applications: Windows, Electron, and TMS Web Core and Delphi. And what I can see is that both applications for Electron native application and Delphi and TMS Web Core applications, they are the same. I mean that TMS Web Core can totally, you're using TMS Web Core, you can create the same application like with native Electron development tools, and under the hood they're working the same. They're using the same amount of memory, the same CPU, and so on. And again, maybe my benchmark was not very correct, but let's suggest to the experienced Electron people and provide their benchmarks. Okay. This here we discussed about their JavaScript based, and what else do we have for Windows desktop development besides JavaScript? And we will talk very briefly about this. Let's start from the what do we have from the Microsoft, and it's really interesting questions. I tried during my development career. I tried a lot of solutions for Windows desktop development, and not even tried. I developed a huge systems and solutions, also using, of course, Microsoft technologies. And this is what I can even ask myself: is it possible that Microsoft solutions can be not the best tool for development native applications? Now, let's, for example, compare Delphi VCL, FireMonkey. You know that FireMonkey is just different a number of classes inside Delphi. It's just different framework. VCL, it's only for Windows 60, Win62, Win32, and Win64 applications, but FireMonkey, it's a cross-platform framework which with different number of classes inside Delphi. And for Windows desktop development from the Microsoft, we have WinForms and WPF, and just let's compare these 2 technologies with Delphi. If we're talking about WinForms, that's really first developer-friendly development framework for Windows. After Visual Studio 6, it was 2003 version, when the C# and .NET was introduced. And for me, it's just a little copy of Delphi. It was like, because the concept was very similar. And if we're talking about WinForms, your UI capabilities for apps still too weak. It's really too hard to customize UI controls. And for now, for today, I even don't know the people who are starting new development using WinForms, because I think it's a lot, almost obsolete frameworks in this position of Microsoft. If we compare with WSL and Delphi, I think again the developer is Delphi is with WSL is a really more developer-friendly tool for building rich UI applications, which rich UI. It's a really huge set of UI components for building rich UI, including native Windows application and Windows 10 applications, and it's really up to date. And but of course, world is changing, and if you need something more new and more universal with cross-platform capabilities, you can try FMX. If we're talking about WPF technology for Microsoft, that's really flexible and deep customizable framework. If compared with their product like WinForms, it's very adaptable for building richer applications for Windows. It's for me and WPF developers, when they can hear, sometimes it's not trivial for developing such as we're using XAML, and it has to work. It has to work more faster, but not on the. Sorry, this is a typo. On the absolute computers, we need brand new computers. If we should have something fast, and if compare with Delphi and WSL, I think maybe it will be more correct to compare WPF with FMX, because FMX it has its own and new generation framework for building. It's new generation of how to build the application, because we have new style-based development ideology for styling our applications, and this is. And this is why I think that WPF it's a little bit above if compared with WSL, but FMX it's on the same layer. And now let's talk about other things, real things. Let's check. If I already said about FMX, let's say a couple of words about WSL and FMX. If we're talking about WSL, and we should still have to use it and use for brand new development, we can use WSL because it has deep Windows OS integration, of course, and included Windows 10. And yes, it's only for Windows for today, and it will be all the time in the future, and it's only for Windows 100%. But it has a huge third-party components availability, especially for Windows. If we think about cross-platform, where we have some requirements, and maybe in the future we will have something multi-platform. Theoretically, we can start from WSL and then just migrate WSL to FMX. Especially migration task will be in the field of migration of user interface, because FMX has totally different components and structure and ideology. But if we will choose FMX for brand new development, we will really have Windows native applications with single code base and possibility for the future to add support for Linux and macOS. Because for FMX is building the same native application like WSL, because you are compiling your application to the low-level machine code. Again, as I already said, FMX has new GUI concept based on styles. I think it's very interesting, and you can even try and check FMX samples from the Get Package Manager and check how it works. Like each cross-platform technology, of course, it has some limitations, and As I already said, in the end, you will have the same executable like for resale. This decision is up to you. You have to check, and you can think, and you even, if you want to have some opinion, you can ask me using some messengers and discuss this pros and cons. That's all, guys. This is what I wanted to say, and this is why we created this webinar. This is why RAD Studio, Delphi, and C++ Builder come in as an original rapid application development solutions today. Because using Delphi, developers really get maximum productivity, get native desktop performance with less overhead and access really to all platform features, not with any limitations, additions, and so on. But if multi-platform is a requirement for you, then you can look on the FireMonkey framework, which will give you desktop application compatibility on Windows, macOS, and Linux, with the options to extend them to Android, iOS. And guys, yeah, congratulations, you have Android to the end. Now we can discuss some questions if you have. Okay, let me open the panel.
Okay. I'm just going to comment. I appreciated you doing the side-by-side comparison so we could see the amount of memory used by the Electron applications. That was crazy. I always knew that because it was using Chromium, it used a lot of memory. I mean, it's just one of those things you knew, but seeing how much more memory it was using was just crazy.
Interesting that, again, this JavaScript and Node.js also should have some garbage collection, and we don't need to destroy the objects. But I even used examples how it has to work from the different samples. Just copy them, not like I invented something new for myself.
Right.
And this is it is what it is.
Yeah. So Miguel says, mentions you do a comparison with other native compiler for Windows, Visual C++. I don't know if you've done much with Visual C++, but I can say that the it's a lot more complex doing stuff with Visual C++, especially GUI applications. But the performance is usually about the same with Visual C++ to Delphi or C++ Builder. I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
Of course, if somebody even tried to create, for example, native desktop applications using some Visual Studio versions before 2003, using C++, even using up-to-date Visual Studio version, and use C++ for creating visual. It's not console, but visual application. That's really crazy. Well, and we are not even comparing native C++ with Delphi and C++ Builder.
I know that when I looked at C++, Visual C++ before, the amount of like GUI user interface components was fairly low, in my opinion. Maybe just I wasn't as plugged into the ecosystem as I should have been, but just the ability to make a really rich application, you could do it, but it took a lot of effort to get there with it. Miguel's saying, I work with many customers in the corporate environment, and there is still a lot of Windows desktop app development done in Java. Any comparison or comments about using Java frameworks, NetBeans, Swing, etc.?
No, of course. This again, I agree that this is also a totally different world, like for this Java enterprise development, and I did not compare it with Java because this webinar was more about comparing JavaScript-based solutions, because JavaScript for desktop Well, I think that's another question, and if we will compare it, it's again it has its own virtual machine, which is performing all this JavaScript code. But I think maybe that's the subject for the future webinars from Embarcadero. Compare native Delphi applications and Java SE applications.
Yeah. A question here. I'll add something here about the Java. My experience with Java, because I tried it out a while back, and actually I used to do Android development with Java as well. Before we had Delphi for Android. So in my mind, there are three main areas that you compare a solution, a development tool, right? You have the productivity of the developer, which has there's a number of parts to that as well. There's the productivity, and then the size, right? The overhead for deploying it, the complexity in supporting it, stuff like that, and then the performance for the user, right? So those are the three main areas, and then there's lots of subsets in there, right? Like, so the performance for the user may take a lot of memory but be fast, or maybe fast or maybe slow but not take very much memory, for example, inside that performance for the user. In my mind, Java desktop applications actually fail on all three counts. The developer experience is incredibly tedious and slow. There are a lot of great libraries out there for Java that you can leverage, but it's still actually doing work. Writing the code in Java there's a lot of overhead in that, as far as especially building user interfaces. The deployment, right? So what you have to deploy, you have to make sure it's the right version of the Java virtual machine. There's a number of applications I use personally that I'll run into issues. It's like, oh, you have the wrong JVM installed. You have to install a different JVM, and it's like, why is this so complicated? And then for the user, even some of the newer UI frameworks are still not quite a good experience. Some of them they've come a long way from they first came out, but they're still not the best experience. So in my mind, Java falls down in all three areas, at least based on my experience. Are there any tips on using the debugger in Embarcadero? I have a much easier time using Visual Studio C++. Let's see. There's a lot of, I'm trying to think, tips. I'm not sure what kind of issues you're running into. I find I've used Visual Studio and for Visual C++ as well as C#, and there are differences in the way you work with the debugger, but functionality-wise, I find that it works mostly the same. So let me know when you're ready to go share your screen, Serge.
Yeah, let me show.
As far as tips, though, the keys are different. That's the main thing I always notice is when I'm switching back and forth, the F9, F5 keys for run versus debug are different than I guess depends on what specific thing you're running into that you're not able to do. I might be able to provide some better tips, but generally, I think there's some information in the doc wiki on using the debugger, so I would suggest checking that docwiki.embarcadero.com, and maybe you can find some information in there. Okay, so you got the...
Yeah, interesting. Yes, I have this Atom application, JavaScript application using Electron. For starting this desktop application, I have to use Node.js package manager. It's again, I have to start it from of course, you can use different ways like link, shortcuts, and so on. You can see for now that we don't have any Electron applications here running. We don't have. And right now I will start this Electron native application. But one addition, interesting, that these images are switching very fast. But it may be because of broadcasting of webinar, you can see that they're switching too slow. But in reality, they're switching very fast. Okay, I'm pressing the start button. Let's start application. here. Let's go. Yeah. And here you can see a real application using 8 atom. It's even starting. You can see that it's real Chromium inside the Windows application. We even have the development tools. Right now, these images are switching very fast. I don't know. Maybe you have some, not so fast.
Let's to me.
Yeah. Let's check what do we have here. After the starting, we have the same three processes. Electronic the processes, and the CPU is the same like for Delphi application and TMS Web Core application. But as for the memory, you can say again that's happened. That's again, that's something going wrong with this memory. It's white. It's increasing. I don't know. No, I can suggest that I have to somehow clear some objects, but
so
maybe
I know
some.
I looked at you before because Chrome is notorious for using a lot of RAM, and when I looked into it before, what Chrome does is it automatically frees that, right? It's got a garbage collection, but it only, and this is actually indicative of a lot of garbage collectors, is they will use as much RAM as they can before they garbage collect. So what's going on here is it's going to keep using up RAM until it gets some sort of pressure, right? So until something else needs the RAM, and then it'll start freeing it up. And so this is actually, unfortunately, very typical of Chrome. And it's one of those things that, like I said, you know that it's got Chrome inside there, but then you see something like this, right? In the Delphi application, was using 6 megs of RAM total, and here, we're looking at well, even the smallest process there is using 3 times as much RAM. So that's just crazy.
No, that's an example. If you remember such messenger like Skype after he was rebuilt with the JavaScript framework, I guess it was React Native, and it was, for me, it was so slow, and I even thought to drop this tool and don't use it anymore because of productivity on the powerful machines. And by the way, you can see what's going on with this Electron exam memory process. No,
I saw an interesting comment on, I think it was on Twitter. No, it was a blog post someone wrote. They shared it on Twitter, but they used to work for Microsoft. No, they used to work for Google, and they had added support for the Xbox controller to Chrome at some point way back in the past. And they pointed out that if you're building any simple Electron application, you have support for the Xbox controller in your application. That's why it's so big. That's why it's so slow, and that's why it takes up so much memory. Is all this legacy stuff, all this legacy content that is built into Chrome is included in your application as well, whether you need it or not. So,
yeah, that's crazy. I'm building desktop application, but I have classes and libraries from Xbox. That's crazy.
All right. Well, I think that's it for questions. Appreciate everybody joining us. And Serge, thank you so much for all the work you put into this. I found it very interesting to, see, especially, the comparison to Electron and see how that actually pans out. It's interesting because it does seem faster, although my experience has been that, because I have a number of applications that I use on my desktop that are written in Electron as well. And even though I have a lot of RAM, I still find I have to close out of those because my system just gets bogged down and slow and I run out of memory. So now I know why.
Yes, guys, thanks for coming. See you later, maybe in the future webinars.
Yes. All right. See you all around. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.